Andrea.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
So, yeah, I'm quite all right. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good as well, thanks.
Yeah, good. So, was there an update to this meeting sent out recently, or was there some other CDF meeting maybe? Last week, I think there was some updates. I thought if there was an update to the Zoom link and if people might have the wrong link, but maybe not. Let's hope not.
Yeah, I've seen an update coming through, but didn't understand what the change was. You said there was a new link.
Yeah,
Maybe.
something, I don't know. But yeah, I guess it's the correct one here. I hope people use the CDF calendar when they join this meeting, and they try to join. So.
The calendar. Sorry, I can put it on Slack.
Yep. Good. So as we prepare the agenda.
Yeah, I put some standard things on the agenda. Let me. No, this is not the agenda. Okay. So we should get started.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm just trying to find link.
What did we set the milestone to now? Was it to this week or? Yeah, March 13th.
Yes. Oh. Hi, Evan.
Hi, Evan, welcome.
Well, hi, pleasure to meet you, finally.
Hello, nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
I am so excited to join. Sorry I'm a bit late. Son had a doctor's appointment, but
No problem.
I was quite excited. So please continue. I just want to listen.
Please, who are you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Your interest. No,
first
no
time.
problem. Your interest.
So I'm Evan Elms. I am from Fidelity Investments, and I am a math nerd who fell into DevOps for fun because I was like, oh, that looks cool. So I'm very much so, my background is, again, data engineering is my bread and butter. I love that. But I'm all about Jenkins, DevOps, and so here at Fidelity, I help with a lot of internal projects, kind of helping to standardize some of our DevOps pipelines. We use Jenkins. And so we are right now just trying to, at an enterprise, we discovered everybody has their own little bits of how they do a pipeline. And we're like, why don't we kind of standardize that? That might be nice. And so then getting involved with that, and then heard about CDEvents, which is data and DevOps. I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds beautiful. So I'm just trying to get plugged in and have fun.
Welcome. You're in the right spot.
Say what?
You're in the right spot.
I know. Thank you so much. Y'all are doing such good stuff. I've started using the SDKs, and I'm like, wow, why didn't I know about this sooner? So this is awesome.
So you said,
Great,
oh,
yeah.
you're with Fidelity as well, or what did you say your affiliation was?
I am with Fidelity, so I work
Yeah.
at Fidelity. Yeah.
Good.
Right. Yeah, we're about getting started. I guess the first thing, well, and feel free to sign yourself in the participant list if you'd like to, Evans. So the first question was about the release. So we had the release planned for end of February, I think. No, we didn't. We postponed it already to like kind of mid-March.
Yeah, so it's mid-March, but it's
Yes,
already,
mid-March.
is it Monday this week? Or something. It's quite soon anyway. Or the next week, I mean.
Yeah, it is.
Am I allowed to ask questions or just be quiet? Like,
No,
Go on,
sure.
go on.
Go ahead.
So for the release, will this then be available in the Maven public repositories? So I've been playing with the Java SDK. I downloaded it, made the jar, threw it into my IDE. But for future, when you mean release, is that kind of where you're heading this, at least on the Java side?
Yeah, I think so. We have one issue actually just created recently about what the release process involves, because we've not made many releases until now.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is the release for the specification, and once the specification is released, we'll need to do releases for the SDKs as well. And I'm sure for Java it would make sense to have it on Maven Central, is that?
Yes, absolutely. For your POM file, pulling that in, I was reading through the Maven common repository, like, just to pull the dependency, and I didn't find it. So like, ooh, cool. I just get to go play with the jar directly. So sorry, I'm a hyper person. Really sorry if I have a lot of energy. My wife has to deal with it every day. So tell me to shut up. If I'm like,
Hey, I don't want to hear, never apologize for being your best self. All right, you're
Okay.
doing great and I'm proud of you.
well, if it's my best self, I'm the type of person who gets excited for bed and then I can't go to sleep because I'm that hyper. And my wife is like, you've got
Well, I think you're doing awesome.
thank you. I don't think we've had pleasure to meet. I'm Evan.
Evan, I'm Robert, and we just did, my brother.
Awesome. I'm excited to help out and learn and play with some math. Well, not math, data. I'm a math nerd. That's my thing. And help out with this fun stuff.
Cool.
That's great.
Welcome, Robert. So for the next release, I mean, incident events, maybe we can see how far we get with the incident event discussion and other item that we plan for the agenda, and then see when is a good date for that to happen. What do you think, Emil?
Yeah, makes sense.
Hey, before y'all get into that, can I give you an update on what I did with Spinnaker? I know it's a little bit further down.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Not a big deal, but I reached out to the Spinnaker team, reached out to Cameron over there to get his thoughts. Cameron's CTO over at Armory, one of the project leaders at Spinnaker, and shared with him Ben's interest and getting his thoughts on it. So what, again, just to let you know, my hope is having Spinnaker basically Spinnaker supporting CDEvents out of the box. Great. And then having Ben talk about it on behalf of Apple. The goal is to show the world that more people using CDEvents and to put pressure, not bad pressure, good pressure. Show a coalition of the willing to adopt CDEvents, so more CD products are adopting it. You got to get one, and then you get a second one. But anyway, that's where I'm at. I don't know where that's going to go, but just letting you know what I'm doing. The reason why I wanted to go first is because I got a jet, and I wanted to give you all an update. I'm so sorry.
That's great. Thanks, Robert, for the update. So, yeah. So the support, it's I guess happening through the RFC, and then yeah. So you talked to Ben about talking about this on behalf of Apple, right?
He's devil's in the details. All right. So, but he is certainly open to that. We're going to be chatting. He's actually in Austin, Texas. So am I. So we're going to meet up in person. Whoa, that's weird.
Oh.
So we're going to discuss that. But gang, I just wanted to give you an update on what I'm doing. And I didn't want to just distract from the more meaty events or more meaty topics that you have. Is there something else that you would like me to do? Is there something like you want to send me on a mission to go talk to another CD provider? Or do you want to get Spinnaker done first and use that as a positive example?
Well, I think we have Evan from Fidelity here, and I mean Fidelity is helping us, is going to help us, driving the implementation of CDEvent for Jenkins.
Oh, on the Jenkins side. Okay. All right. Thanks, Evan. I didn't know you were at Fidelity. Hey, are you going to be part of the big Fidelity crew that's going to CDCon?
Yes.
Cool. I'll see you there.
So yeah.
I'll see you there. And
I'm excited to see you there too. I'm in Dallas, by the way. Texas is awesome. I'm
right on, man.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that'll be good. I'd like to hook up with y'all there.
Oh, would love to. And I'm kind of one of those weird people. Fidelity's doing their thing, but also on my personal time, I'm wanting to play. So it's one of those where like we're focusing on the Java and the Jenkins, but then I'm over here going to try and help with Python and some automation because I like scripting. That's fun. So yeah, but that's just, yeah.
All right. Well, Ben would very much appreciate it because he wants, for Apple, they want Spinnaker and Jenkins talking to each other. Jenkins does a thing, Spinnaker does a thing. So that's what they want. Gang, anything else for me? Was that good?
That's great. I mean, if you can get more details about the Jenkins plus Spinnaker use case, that's something that maybe we could include in a POC or use for.
Oh, no doubt. That is exactly what the goal is, and I think we're meeting on the 17th. And so we're going to go and grab a bite and talk about this. So definitely get that, help him bring that story out, because my goal here is to have somebody speaking about using all these things together, and CDEvents being the, I don't know, is that the strong force, the weak force? I don't know. Kind of holding all this stuff together. Econ undergrad, I wasn't a physics major, so I don't know that crap. But if basically the story is, hey, CDEvents is tying all this stuff together. It's not duct tape and baling wire with shell scripts. But yes,
sounds great.
Message received, and I will make that happen. Absolutely, I will get the story.
Great. Thanks for the update, Robert.
All right. Thanks, gang. And I appreciate y'all giving me a kitchen pass and let me jet. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. Back to incident events. the agenda. So I guess that's the main feature we want to get into our next release. So hopefully we're close to getting it done. One point of discussion was whether we should call the new group of events continuous operations with the S versus continuous operation without the S.
Yeah, it's of course a nitty-gritty detail. I totally understand that. It's just that I was a bit I thought of it when I saw it, and obviously I also always say continuous operations with an S. That's my way of saying it. I was just a bit concerned with that we use the other terms in singular in the bucket names there. And I think it's kind of hard to change this afterwards once we settle it, even though it's not just the 1.0 version of the spec itself. But I don't have a so strong opinion. I just wanted us to make a conscious decision that so we don't need to change it afterwards.
Right.
So, yeah.
Evan, you were going to say something?
I think from my experience, if you have a singular word and you try to encompass other class methods, it kind of like different types of operations, I guess. I think the using singular might limit you and then trying to rewrite it later. I've been on app teams where they try to rewrite classes because of some naming convention standard or change, and it is a nightmare. So I think singular might be locking you into a too tight. So I would agree. If I understood correctly.
Yeah, I mean the other
decided. So yeah. So Andre.
No, I mean the other buckets that we have, like continuous integration and continuous deployment, I guess, and we use singular there. And for this one, I had proposed continuous operations just because, well, at least in my experience working in software, the group that worked on running the software in production was always called the operations team with the S, and I always known it as operations. So I never referred to it as like operation team without the S, but as I said, Emil, I mean, they're actually both out there in the internet if you Google them. So it's
and if you Google them, it's actually like 10 times more without the S than with the S. If you take continuous operation and combine it with, say, continuous deployment, then you get like 10 more hits than if you do continuous operations, which surprises me, but it's just that, well, I don't know why, but so I don't know if we are alone using the S there or.
Yeah, and I don't think we have anything on the interoperability side or best practices that defines this name. Where is it? No, it's the wrong link.
We shouldn't be blocked by this, I think. So I could be okay keeping it with an S as the suggestion is now. If there are no major objections. Like you said, Evan, it is more generic and might be more suitable to have it as in plural than.
Yeah, it's kind of hard that there's no like reference for these kind of things. I guess we're trying to set one.
Yeah. At least we have discussed it, and we have some traces of the discussion through this pull request, and it could be so that this discussion is lifted in maybe SIG interoperability somewhere in some vocabulary discussion later on, and then we can just refer to this there and continue the discussion there, and then of course we can change if needed afterwards.
At least there's nothing in the JSON schemas or that refers to it, right?
Right.
So we could.
No, right. It is okay. So it's quite easy to change it. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
That's good in this sense. Yeah. So let's keep it there. I can just delete my comments in the pull request, and then it's actually done. I can approve it then.
Okay. I think it's good to keep your comment there. I mean, to for reference, and we can bring
Oh,
this
yeah.
up to some other sake.
Sure. But I will reject my own comments, but I will keep them, of course. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that was the last bit missing. So it was. I think there was Matthias requested some changes. I think I implemented the changes requested.
Yeah, I can probably check with him if he has
So
some
maybe you
other
can-
opinions on the rest. I will meet him tomorrow, so I can check with him then.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. So then we can merge these, and then we can start getting these events in the SDKs and move forward.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess as a spin-off from this, I initially added the format URI reference for the source everywhere in those events. But now I moved that out from that PR and made a new PR for it. That basically enforces a format URI reference as defined in the spec for all the sources in all the events. And according to the versioning schema that we have in the primer, it basically bumps the patch number for all event types.
Right.
Yeah. So we could either merge these first, and then I could bring this back into the other PR, or we can merge the incident PR first, and then I can add the incident events in this PR. Whatever is easier, but I think both of them should be in the upcoming release.
Maybe we can just have a small chat about the URI reference versus URI format. So in the related issue there,
Yeah.
I don't know, did I add some note or did I just think of adding some note? I don't remember now. Or some more comment.
The issue.
Maybe I didn't. That was an old one. It's okay, I didn't add anything new. Yeah, I was thinking to maybe look into this a bit more. The difference between URI and URI reference. I know that CDEvents uses URI reference there, right? For the this is it the source field.
Yeah, it's a source field. Yeah.
Yeah, and a URI is a subset of a URI reference according to the format. So of course, if we would limit our source fields to be a URI, it would still be valid as a cloud event, but we would restrict how we could populate that field ourselves, or how the users of CDEvents could populate it. I'm a bit concerned that if we don't have a dedicated URI, but just a reference there, it's not certain that the source is unique. Because we say that the combination of ID and source should always be globally unique. And to be able to make sure that happens, then having a real URI would more or less enforce that being true, or at least helps it being true. I'm not sure if it's a problem, if it's something we need to restrict here and now. Of course, it's easier. Well, I don't know if it's easier to restrict it later on, maybe not.
Yeah.
I know that in the examples you have created, mostly, Andrea, so far, the examples you have made there for the source is not the URI, but the reference often. Right? Doesn't include the protocol and the schema.
Yes. So that's it. I think in the URI, the protocol must be included, right? But it doesn't have to be. It's not a URL, so it doesn't have to be something like HTTPS or FTP or something that you can actively retrieve. It can be something like my protocol name : something else, right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I mean, if we change to URI, we could. I guess we would have to update the examples. I mean, I would not necessarily be opposed to that. Just, I guess it could. It would mean that we would need, at least in the cloud event binding, we would need to find a way to convert that source into something that we can put in the cloud events header, or just keep it in the CDEvents layer.
I think it's no problem to put a URI into the cloud events header, but the other way around could be problematic if someone wants to send a CD event which has not a proper URI but just a reference. It's valid from cloud events perspective, but not from the CD events JSON spec then. Right?
Right, but because the cloud events source must be a reference.
Well,
So if we have,
but the URI reference could be a fixed URI as well. I mean, the value range of a URI reference includes the URI itself.
oh, does it?
That's how I understood it, at least.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's the URI reference is more generic than the URI.
Okay, sorry. Then I think I'm.
If I'm not mistaken now, I think that's the case. We had that somewhere in the link.
Let's see. No, this is a JSON schema specific. I'm not sure we can trust Wikipedia on this, but
No, but there were links to the
W3C.
somewhere.
It's W3C.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is in the, well, where did I see those links? Was it in the cloud event spec somewhere? Those were referenced.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have in our spec as well, probably.
I just want to see if I understand. You want to enforce unique, enforcing that it's unique in the URI. correct? Because you don't want it, URL can be generic. Do I have that backwards?
Yeah, it's we use these IDs of our events, and we have stated that the ID there is to be unique. Yeah, it says there the main purpose of the source is to provide global uniqueness for the source plus the ID together.
Okay, that's sorry, I'm looking at the Java SDK, and my concern is, at least from Jenkins, it's not going to be unique. So if you look at AWS Cloud Code Pipeline, and I believe I've played very, very lightly or looked at Circle CI, it's like a SHA. It's unique, you know, maybe you've got the ARN, all of that. But for Jenkins, it just increments, and you could have like your pipeline name be, you know, potato 1, 2, 3, and then build 1, build 2, build 3. If I delete that pipeline and recreate it, then it won't be unique. Does that make sense? And so Jenkins, this is the problem, but for other CI/CD tools, I don't think this is, because usually the build ID is more unique.
Right, but this is actually not the build ID, it's the event ID. So it would be
Oh.
responsibility for the Jenkins CDEvents plugin to build an ID that is unique for that event. And of course, it could refer to the build ID if it wanted to, but not necessarily.
That helps me. I was just writing that code on Friday. Thank you.
Cool.
So if you go to the CD, it's the Cloud Event spec, sorry, Cloud Event spec MD file. There you have in the bottom there, in the bottom 2 bullets, or
Right.
there have 2 different RFCs there. One is for URI and one for RFC URI reference. And you could see in those that one of them includes the other. One of them is a subset of the other.
A URI reference is either a URI or
Exactly.
a relative reference.
Yeah. So that's the more generic one.
Okay.
So if we state it to be URI reference in the format, we would also allow URIs to be put there. But if we state URI, we do not allow relative references.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And this is, of course, the main reason that I think it's good to break this out, not just to do this in different areas, but also to keep the discussion separate, so we can have the discussion on URI versus reference in the pull request and issue.
Right. The thing is that URI reference is what we have today. I mean, it's not in the JSON schema, but it's in the specification for the common data.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to do any change in 0.2 for this. I think just adding the URI reference to the schema for 0.2 would be basically a no change. It just enforces it for the schema. And then we could discuss whether we want to restrict it to URI. But yeah, we can also keep it as it is. But it will still be a URI reference if we don't do anything.
Since the spec MD says so, yeah. But the schema doesn't say today.
Well, then it's a string, which is even wider.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And yeah.
I don't know if we feel that we need more input on this discussion, and therefore we should postpone it or postpone it to after 0.2 to actually change the JSON schema, and then just keep it as it is now. I don't know if there's a need for that, or if we want to enforce URI reference, or enforce, but put that into the schema for now, and then be open to change it later on.
Sure. I mean, yeah, we don't have to include it in 0.2. I mean, I don't think there is a special pressure to do that now. If you want to avoid like changing the patch number twice, we can hold off and then do it afterwards, or at least in parallel. Yeah. I mean, to me, well, no, I don't want. I shouldn't get into the discussion about URI versus URI reference now. Sorry.
Well, I guess we could, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a very strong opinion. It's just that if we want to be certain that we enforce the uniqueness, I think it's stronger if we would enforce the URI instead of URI reference. But I see that it would be possible to also make it unique with a reference there. And the reason for that source field, we need to understand that the consumer of the event should not be expected to be able to find out more information about the source just by looking at that field, because it might be a reference that is internal to the system who sent this event, and the system who reads it might not have access to be able to know what is the root URL then or whatever for that source. So that the consumer of the event might not be able to find the source, let's say. And that's not stated to be the reason for having the source field either, at the moment at least. The reason is to make the combination of source and ID unique. If you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's globally unique, at least for the scope of who is consuming that data, right? So it's not going to be like worldwide unique.
Yeah.
But so in that sense, a URI reference could be enough to make it, to make it unique for the consumers, I think. I'm not sure URI specifically would make it easier or better in that sense, but
well, if there is a full URI or a real URI, then there is at least a possibility to find that source, probably somehow. I guess it's often a URL, I would guess, and then
yeah, it's not a
contact it, but if you want to. But still, yeah, for sure. I mean, as a producer of these events, if you want the consumer to be able to find your source, so to say, then you could use a URI. It's no problem to use a URI, but it's not enforced, and maybe that's fine for now, or maybe it's fine for long as well.
I would be an advocate for uniqueness, not from just standards and how other systems consume them, but from a data engineering. You could use that in queries, and let's say you have a partition key. And I mean, you can use the unique ID that SHA that's generated for the cloud event, but having a unique string that could be parsed, manipulated for other people to query, I think would be really great in enforcement. Because for me, when I'm querying Jenkins and I'm pulling data for build information, I always go off a unique, like parsing the URL, URI. Now I'm sorry. So I think uniqueness would be cool. That's just me.
Yeah. I think that it's good to maybe have it as a best practice. We can maybe write that in documentation that, well, it's a best practice to use a full URI if you're able to, but the specification actually allows you to also have a reference there. Maybe that's good enough.
Yeah, I guess we could do that. My concern is that, like, if I'm saying I'm sending an event from, I don't know, Jenkins server, or let's say Tecton that I'm more familiar with, like Tekton instance running in a certain cluster. So I can have the source to include some cluster name, or I could start with a namespace, a slash, and then the service name or something like that. But if I had to provide a URI for that, I would probably need to add some scheme there. And I don't know what kind of scheme I would use. I mean, I guess I could use the HTTP URL of the Kubernetes API server.
Something
it
like
feels-
that. But yeah,
It feels a bit arbitrary.
Yeah, I
Mm.
understand. So maybe I think maybe best practice could be sorted out on the way, I guess, as we go, and something like that might end up there in the best practices guide later on then. But until then, I think we can allow for URI reference to be there.
Okay. That makes sense. That sounds like a good proposal to me. So we should include that in the spec. And would you like to go ahead and then enforce URI reference in the schema, or should we continue waiting for that?
No, I think that's fine then to enforce it in the scheme as well, since we have it now in the spec MD there, yeah. Through that ticket.
Okay. So what I can do, I can extend the PR to,
I think that was the wrong link, wasn't it?
oopsie.
Include the milestone link that we did already. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. Looks like we have a way forward for both incident events and URI versus URI reference. So the next one would be connected events. I don't know, we don't have Ben here today. Is there something I added a little bit of details to, but not much really. I wasn't sure what more to add about the span, the trace context.
Maybe try this on Evan and see what you say there, Evan. I'm not sure if you have at all followed this discussion in any way before, how to relate events to each other. It's the discussion. Today we relate them in some ad hoc way, or well, we relate them through this subject field that we have in the events, so that multiple events could have the same subject, and therefore they are seen to be related in some way. But we're discussing now to have a more explicit way of relating any event to each other in some way. And we have two main paths to go. One is this trace context, which is normally used by OpenTelemetry and similar traceability tools in the tracing domain. And another one is to have explicit links, as we call them. And the terminology links come from this other event protocol that is called Eiffel, where a link is there are two differences to trace context, I would say. One is that it's an explicit reference from one event to one previous event, whereas the trace context is a more generic ID for a bag of events, I would say. So you can have the same trace context in multiple events, and they just share one ID, all of them. And then it's up to you to sort them individually in any way you want, more or less. But these links they always form a directed acyclic graph if you trace it back in history, so to say. And another thing on the links is also that they are semantic. So, or they could, we haven't decided that, but they could be semantic. So you could have like a tag on the link saying this link is towards a previous event, which has this relationship to mine event, for example. It might be a bit hard to describe just with words, but so there are two different paths there, and then I know that Ben also suggested a combination of those to more or less have both links and these trace contexts. We were supposed to call in someone from this special interest group of ML Ops to this discussion. I haven't reached out to anyone there, unfortunately. I'm not sure how much involved you are in ML and those things, Evan, since you are a data guy.
I have played just lightly with them, but I haven't had the opportunity. We have groups that do machine learning operations, but that's more on the like we have a cognitive computing group. Sadly, no, just other than my personal like playground, I guess.
Right. So you don't have much experience on open telemetry and such solutions either?
No, sadly not.
Oh, no, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, just to add what you mentioned, and I think there. So what Ben was proposing was like a global ID, so kind of distributed transaction ID, if you will, or some ID that would record a series of events that somehow belong to a kind of workflow or a series of things that happened. Well, the trace ID, I think it additionally provides this parent information, so this span information, so that allows you to, I think it gives you more structure on how to order the events. So it allows you to see that there is a certain trace ID that is common to all the events, but there is also there are also different spans, and the spans they're kind of related. So there is this span that starts first, and then this span can have like sub spans. So it kind of builds not necessarily a graph, but a tree of events in that way.
It's more of a tree, isn't it?
It's a
tree.
It's a tree. It's a tree in that case. Which it's a bit more information than just a plain single ID, but it's still kind of agnostic from compared to the event links, because it doesn't have any specific semantic associated to it. I mean, the trace context specifically, it includes the ability of having vendor-specific data that can be attached to a span, and then when that data is provided, then the protocol is built in a way that it's basically forwarded transparently. So if you receive some context there attached to the trace context, if you receive some key values, basically, you don't need to understand them, but you must forward them, basically. So it kind of builds an incremental context. We could use similar mechanism to provide some metadata, but yeah. But then there is also the hybrid approach. To be honest, I've not had time to spend on this topic specifically to make progress.
Yeah, same here.
I think what we would need to make progress is to identify specific use cases and see what we could solve with one approach or the other, or the hybrid approach.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not easy to do, because I guess we could probably solve many of the use cases that we mentioned before with both approaches. Just it can be easier or with one use case than the other, but it's not that it's impossible.
Yeah, there are some limitations, I guess, with both solutions, and I guess that's why the hybrid solution is suggested as well. So I think the main limitation with the link solution is that it will performing a downstream, so to say, search for all events that correspond to a certain event or ID. It's kind of a expensive request towards the database often, but while it's easier to just query for a certain ID of one event or of a group of events. But on the other hand, it's quite hard to lay out the events in a good order, since it's just a tree of events, as we said, and not a real DAG graph of events if they are not linked individually. So yeah, but I think we would need to have more specific examples on the use cases and how they would be solved with the different solutions.
My feeling is that for like more short-lived type of situations, like the trace context, or something like the global ID that Ben suggested could work well, because it makes it easy to select a small set of events that are associated with a transaction or distributed transaction or workflow. But if you want to consider more long-running type of scenarios and like supply chain type of use case that we were discussing, then you need to have a longer history, and in that case, I think the links approach would work much better, because it would allow you to have more semantic on the links and to have access to historical information. But yeah, I think to me that the link approach to be used effectively to gain much more advantage compared to the other one, it requires to have access to the database of links when you're forming an event.
It helps, yeah.
It doesn't have to, but I think yeah, that's my impression. But you have more experience than me on that, because you've used it in IFO. I mean, in all approaches, in any case, you need to have at least access to one source event at a minimum.
Yeah. And if you're not, I mean, if you have an event triggered system, and if you're triggered by an event and that's the only event you want to link to, then it's easy to just link to that, because then you have the idea of that event that you already was triggered by. But if you want to link to some other event that you were not triggered by, or if you're not an event triggered activity, so to say, then you need to somehow look it up. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that lookup could be made, well, if you are a recurring consumer of events, you could, I mean, the service that would send the event, if it also consumes events itself, then it could continue to subscribe to such events, which they eventually would like to link to. So it doesn't need to be a central database that everyone asks, but yeah, it depends on how you set it up and what use cases you have, I think.
I'll just say I really like that. Just in my opinion, what's the cleanest and best way to tell a story? So this data tells a story about if a developer makes a single commit, what was that pipeline? What did it do so that you can track it? I'm all about like looking at statistics like a gamma distribution. What story are you trying to tell, and what's the cleanest way to tell and understand that? And I think linking events, just how it might take more time, I think would actually really help. That's just my opinion. I'm all about telling a story, understanding what are we trying to depict from this data? What are we trying to present and decipher? And I think investing in it might be a little bit longer, but linking those, I think that'd be beautiful. Just in my opinion.
That's good input.
You don't have to add that. I'm sorry.
Good.
Yeah, but I'm not very good at taking notes, so maybe you can also, I put the link in the chat.
Yeah.
Add your comments in there.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, we are almost at time. Yeah, I'm just. I would like to see a way how we can move forward with this event, connecting events, and have a decision. But yeah,
it feels we need a face-to-face workshop about this somehow, but we can't. No, we need to work through a whiteboard or something, or we just try something out and see how it flies. I mean, we're still quite early stages still in CDEvents, so we could try that somehow. And I guess if we would allow for the hybrid approach to include both variants, we could see which one flies highest when they are let free, so to say.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think the only, as we discussed before, the only risk with that with the hybrid approach is to confuse adopters or make it harder for consumers, because if you don't know which options you will have, unless you made one of the two like mandatory and the other one optional, and then you can rely on one and maybe have the other one.
Yeah, I think we might need to have them optional, at least if we don't have a better consensus in a wider community before we set it. We might need to have both optional, but we could still have, it would put more requirements on our documentation, I think, to document how this could be done. And then it also might need some negotiation between the producer and the consumer of these events. What variant would we use in this source, in this area, so to say. So different deployments of the spec maybe could be then use either the context or workflow ID thing or the linking thing.
Right. So I guess we maybe makes sense to dig a bit more into what it would take to have them both optional. We can include that.
I think we could start looking at syntax quite soon, what it would look like in the actual spec.
Okay.
In parallel with creating the use cases for it.
Okay. Well, we are at time, so we should stop here. But especially, I wanted to mention for you, Evans, if you are working on the looking at the Python SDK or Java SDK, and you have questions, or don't be shy. Feel free to ping us on the Slack, so that you're not blocked and you're able to proceed if you have questions or concerns.
Absolutely. I will happily do that. I will say I started at least first off looking at automating the documentation. So I kind of just started playing with that. That was the other piece I thought I'd try. So, but yeah, I most definitely will start reading through the Python pull request. So yeah.
Cool. Great. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you all too. Have a wonderful week. And always excited to get involved and help out. So
Great to see you.
bye.
Have a good week.
You.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.